Welcome everybody, welcome to Bald Cafe podcast. This is now episode 6, and if you're new here to the podcast, I'll give you a brief introduction. I started Bald Cafe to try and help guys all over the world, deal with their balding bravely and confidently, as I've said many times. And I really love doing these podcast episodes because it's a chance to hear stories of other people who have dealt with hair loss, dealt with balding, and I really feel that by listening to other people's stories, people who are dealing with their hair loss now, they can realize, other people are going through the same thing, or other people have gone through the same thing, and I just really think it helps overall. So it is my absolute pleasure today to introduce Cesar, 21-year-old Cesar, all the way from Paris, France. He's here with us on the podcast to share his story. Hello, Cesar, how are you?
Hi everyone, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic, it's an absolute pleasure, man. So let's just get straight into it, okay? Take me back, you're 21 years old now. Take me back to, I don't know, a few years before. Tell me, what were you like? How were you? How was the hair situation? Describe it for me.
I used to have long, wavy hair that I loved so much. I've had it this way for long years, and yeah.
So, right, yeah, I used to like my hair too, as we all did, I think, but nice and long, wavy hair. Maybe, I haven't watched it, but maybe we'll get a few pictures, and if you're watching on YouTube, maybe we can put a few pictures up there. That might, of course. Yeah, that will help. Awesome. So, had this awesome wavy hair, and so when did you first find out that you were losing your hair?
So I found out like 6-7 months ago. It started thinning on the top. I couldn't style it the way I liked to before, but it was not receding yet because it receded after. And I started noticing that I could not style it the way I wanted, so I started to freak out.
Yeah. Okay, so you just noticed that it was generally just thinner all over. Yeah. You're right? Exactly. And then later on it started to recede backwards. And so... Yeah,
on the sides.
And so is that one of the first things that you noticed? It was just when you were styling it, it was, as you were running your sort of hand through it and whatnot, it was just noticeably less hair. Did you notice any other things, like, I don't know, maybe washing your hair or maybe hair on the pillow, anything like that?
At first, no. For, I'd say, 2 weeks approximately, no hair loss, just thinning. But it came afterwards, like I said, 2 weeks after. Yeah. I started seeing like 10, 15 hairs every time I used to. Oh, really? Because I used to have my hands every time in my hair. I used to play with it, style it all the time. So I started to notice that.
Right, okay. Now, we should sort of talk about really, because obviously we've been talking on Instagram for a little bit, back and forth. And you mentioned to me that you had this illness. Can you, and is that the sole cause of the hair loss, or can you tell me a bit more about that?
Sure. It's not. It just kind of speed up the process. Right. But my dad's mom lost all his hair like when he was 25, 30 years old. Okay. Yeah. So when I went to a dermatologist, she told me that this was the main reason. Okay, yes. Oh, so the dermatologist, she told you that it was male pattern baldness, right? Yeah. But you also had this other condition as well at the same sort of time that might have sort of brought on the hair loss faster, right? That's it. Okay, I understand. So you're in your family, you mentioned, sorry, it was your mother's father, your grandfather. He lost his hair. I'm sorry, I missaid that. It's the dad of my mom. Oh, your mother's father, right? Okay, I understand. Yeah. Is there any other hair loss in the family other than that? Any sort of uncles or cousins or brothers, anything like that, or just on that side? No, just a bit receding on the side, but still a full head of hair. Okay, I understand. So, and you're 21 years old now, and you said these symptoms happened about sort of 7-8 months ago. So before that time, did you notice any, did you worry about it at all? Did you ever think, oh, maybe my hair will fall out? Or were you sort of none the wiser? You didn't really think about it? honestly, I was not worried at all because I was sure that I would keep my hair. It was not a problem.
Yeah.
I would have my hair for all my life. I was sure about that. Yeah. So I was not ready at all when it happened.
You weren't ready. Yeah. And so, okay, so you said to me, right, your hair was thinning, and then was it because of the thinning hair you went to the dermatologist? Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay, and she told you, oh, it's male pattern baldness, and then did you ask her, oh, well, what can I do about it?
Sure. That was my first question.
And what advice did she give you?
She came straight to the point. She told me about minoxidil. That was the only thing she told me.
Okay, so just minoxidil. She didn't try to prescribe you Propecia or finasteride or any drugs like that?
No, she did not even mention it.
Okay, interesting. So she mentioned the minoxidil, and did she prescribe it, or did she just say, oh, you should go and buy this? What happened?
She prescribed it.
Oh, she prescribed it to you. Okay.
Yeah.
And
she told me to come back 6 months later for an update.
Okay. And how did she tell you to use it, the minoxidil?
She told me to apply it on the sides here on the front because I only had hair loss here, not on the I don't know how you called it, but the back.
Crown, yeah, the crown at the back.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
No hair loss.
Oh, just here, receding here, right? She told you to put it on there, and how did that go for you?
Well, I did it for I think 2 or 3 weeks. But I searched a lot about it on the internet, and I found out a lot of side effects, and that freaked me out.
Right. Yeah.
So and I was not honestly ready to fight it. I already started thinking about accepting it.
Okay. Yeah. Time. Okay, that's good. That's good. So even though obviously this dermatologist has told you, oh, you can use this, did she sort of say to you, oh, you should just accept it, or did she really kind of persuade you to use this minoxidil? That's something I'm interested about. Was she like, oh, you should definitely use this, or what?
She was like this. She told me a lot about it, and it felt like there was no other way. It was minoxidil or nothing.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting, right? Because obviously, as a woman, I wonder if maybe she doesn't maybe understand what it really it's like. But anyway,
I see what you mean.
Yeah, but that's besides the point. Anyway, so you went the minoxidil route, didn't quite work out for you. Did you, at this time, obviously, I can imagine you're still feeling quite unprepared for the hair loss. And even though you said you'd thought about accepting it, I think you said to me you were still feeling quite down about it, right? You mean, when all this is going on, how are you feeling inside, and what? Did you feel self-conscious? Did you feel anxious, depressed, anything like that? How were you feeling at this time?
As I told you, I was not prepared at all. So when it started happening, I freaked out totally. It was... I couldn't get out of my house. I couldn't see my friends. I couldn't... Yeah, I did not recognize myself. Looking at the mirror, I was not, that's not me. How can I live with that? And I started really being scared. There was no future, you know?
Yeah. No, I totally know how you feel. I mean, I freaked out the same, you know, and I'm sure there's loads of guys listening to this or watching this who can 100% identify with that, you know? You're not prepared for it, like you say. Most people, they're not thinking, oh, one day my hair's going to fall out. But when you realise it, it's like a ton of bricks coming down on you. So, you said you didn't really see your friends. Did you sort of, apart from the dermatologist, did you talk to anyone about, what was happening or how you felt and things like that, or?
Sure. I told my mom.
Yeah.
And I told my closest friends, like I'd say 3.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, I'm losing my hair. This is the end of my life. How am I gonna do? And they reacted all really chill, cool. It's okay. You're gonna be fine. You're still the same. And I didn't want to hear all that. I didn't.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? You kind of look for advice, and people tell you, oh yeah, don't worry, but really that doesn't it doesn't make you feel any better, right? I know what you mean, because to you it's such a huge deal, it's so important, and these people, they're not going through the same thing, right? So how can they? And they say, oh, don't worry about it, but they don't really understand. So yeah, I can imagine. So, you know, not very nice situation, and that was obviously what, about 6 months ago now. So
that's it.
Can you sort of give me an idea of what sort of how you got from there to where you are now? What sort of process did you go through, and how did you get to the point where you're at today?
I think I got to this point because it went really fast, the hair loss.
Yeah.
You know, I watched one of your podcasts where the hair loss was really slow. You know, it happened over a few years.
Yeah.
And mine went really, really fast. So I'd say 2 or 3 months after it started, I was already feeling like I could not even rock anymore the hair that I had.
Yeah.
So I started with a buzz cut. I went to a barbershop.
Yeah.
And I started with that, but it still felt like I felt ashamed, you know.
Yeah. You could still see it, maybe, like me. I did the same thing. I got the buzz cut, but you could still, in fact, I felt like it kind of made it work more obvious. It looked like it was really dark here, and then in the middle here was sort of really thin, really light coloured, and it made it look worse. Yeah, okay. And so...
And then I came on one of your videos.
Yeah.
And a lot of other videos on the internet were people talking about shaving it off completely and rock it and be confident about it.
Yeah.
And it just felt the good way to go.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So I shaved it and I hated it at first. I was like, what?
Yeah. And it feels so strange, right? It feels so weird. You've never felt that before, and it feels strange. Like, yeah, I know. But you say
after that, After that, I got some compliments from friends, from other people, and started feeling confident about it.
Yeah.
So it helped a lot.
That's good, man. That's good. I mean, I'd never seen your real... We've talked on Instagram and stuff like that, but I'd never actually seen what you'd look like. And honestly, it looks good. It doesn't look weird, you know. It just looks normal, you know. I mean, I see a lot of bald people, as you can imagine. You know, I talk to a lot of bald people. Most people who just go for it, in the end, they just look fine. It's like there's nothing to worry about. I think, in all honesty, the shaved head, you just totally shave off, it actually suits more people than it doesn't suit. I think there's only a small handful of people that it really honestly doesn't look good. But I think that's such a small handful of people, you know, who maybe have a really strange sort of shaped head, but that's not most guys, you know. So yeah, I think you've done well. You've done really well to get to this point. You mentioned you come across, was it on YouTube? You just sort of were doing lots of Google searches and things like that, were you, to look for that inspiration?
Exactly. As I'm very young, you know, 21 years old, I think I was typing balding young or balding 21 years old. I came on a lot of videos, and one of it was yours.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm happy to hear that, and of course, I'm so glad. You know, like I said to you before, I'm really glad my stuff could help out.
Thank you, because it helped me a lot. You have no idea.
Thank you. This is, you know, it feels almost emotional to hear that, in all honesty, because this is exactly why I started it. You know, I started with that very first video, just sharing my own story, you know, and I got a lot of good feedback from it. And the more I do, you know, I wrote the ebook and stuff like that, you know, the more I can get in touch with people like you, and that's exactly why I do it. So yeah, you think of me and I thank you 100% back.
Great.
And so, but it's not all been fantastic, right? Let's talk about some of the problems you've had, because we've been trying to figure this one out, right? But tell me, what sort of problems have you had?
Confidence going out, that was the main issue, you know. Even after I shaved, it was still it felt still weird, and today sometimes I still feel weird about it. You know, looking at the mirror like, that's not me, I don't look like this, you know. But in how could I say that, sorry, I felt so down that I could not even get out That was horrible, and I felt terrible. But the most of the fear that I had was concerning my dating life, you know, with girls. That's what I found out. That's probably the main concern that I had.
Yeah. No, I can imagine, you know, it's all, for a young guy, these are, even a guy with hair, you know, these are all normal concerns, especially when you're young. But I think, you know, one thing that you can do differently is, at least you've done it now, you know, you've taken the action, and all you can only go up from here. Does that make sense? You know,
of course it does.
As you describe, you know, you couldn't go out the house and stuff like that. Like, I've talked about it in other videos in the ebook. That's like your rock bottom, right? And you have to get to that point. You have to get to the point where you feel awful. You don't want to do anything. You don't want to see people. And then, you know, for some people it's a slow climb up. For some people it's faster. But you can only go up from here, you know. And you've got so much time and so much learning to do, you know. When I tell people, focus on goals, focus on things you're interested in, focus on becoming a better person, you know, taking pride in other things other than just your hair, you know. Those are all the things you're going to get so much confidence from in the future, you know. And as long as you focus on those, man, you'll have absolutely no problem at all. No problem at all. With girls, with work, with anything, you know. No problem at all.
I noticed it.
And the other problem you've had that we've talked about is the razor burns, right? It's a bit of a specific problem, and we've been trying to find some cures. Did you try the hair conditioner yet?
I did. It felt a bit better.
Yeah.
You know, I found this video about a guy telling that he was only using
conditioner.
How you say it? Yeah,
conditioner.
Sure. Conditioner, and I didn't understand how it felt so smooth looking at it. Doing it, but when I did it, it helped a bit, but still got razor burns.
Although
on the sides and the back of my head.
Yeah, the guy said, and I watched the video too, he said some people, their skin has to get used to it as well, right? So I thought in your case that might be the same. I'm not sure, but you know, I'll do my best as well to try and find a good sort of, because you know, you use the different razors and stuff like that. So we'll get there. We'll get you to a point where you can have the nice, comfortable shave, because it makes it a lot better. You know, it makes it a lot more comfortable and enjoyable and stuff like that. You know, just a part of your daily routine and whatnot. But
because I started shaving with the grain when I first did it.
Right.
But I just love so much the clean against the grain look.
Yeah.
So I just that's why it's so painful to have these razor burns, because I wish I could rock the totally bald style, because I actually in the end fell in love with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. But I think you get there. You know, the more you do it, maybe the technique will get a bit better and stuff like that. You know, I think you'll be fine with that. So. It's fantastic, man. I really appreciate you sharing your story. How about, you know, what sort of advice would you give to other people, maybe other young guys? Obviously, you know, you're still young, only 21. And I can imagine there's a lot of guys that are maybe falling on this video, maybe searching the same thing, you know, bald 21, going bald young. Yeah, can you give some sort of advice to them from yourself? What sort of advice would you give to these guys?
So the advice that I could give to every young or older people struggling with hair loss around the world is that you just need to do what makes you feel better. You know, if you really need your hair, you can start a fight the hair loss any way you want. There is a lot of treatments. I'm just telling my story because it helped me to just accept it, shave it off, and in the end, I went more confident than I used to be before with hair, you know?
Yeah.
And I know it sounds easy to say, just shave it, you know, when I first found your video, I didn't tell myself, oh, sounds good, let's shave it.
Yeah.
But you need to understand that getting done with it will be a lot better than keep struggling with it for the rest of your life.
Definitely.
That's my point.
That's awesome, man. I 100% agree. Another question, just quickly, because you mentioned a really interesting point. You said you're more confident now than you were even before, and I feel the same thing about myself. And now my theory is that is come from, because like I said earlier, you've hit that rock bottom, and then you've managed to build up the courage to take that big action. You know, shaving all your head off and going totally bald is a big deal. And now I think that the confidence that comes from that, you know, that you said you're more confident afterwards, I think a lot of that confidence comes from sort of conjuring up the courage to take the action and just shave it off.
I agree.
What do you think? You think the same thing for you, maybe?
I do. Yeah. Maybe because, you know, I was putting too much love and too much attention about my hair, and now, you know, I felt a bit ridiculous looking back then when I used to be always styling my hair, like taking care of it, and it felt just better this way. And also I got so much compliments from other people. You know, the people who knew me at first were like, that's weird, I don't recognize you, but in the end, you know, they're looking at me and you kind of rock it.
Yeah, awesome, man. That's so good.
It feels good.
That's good. I'm so happy that, you know, you've got here now. When you described before, you know, not wanting to go out of the house and stuff like that, I know how it feels, as will a lot of guys. So it's awesome that you've got to the place where you are now. And yeah, just thank you so much for sharing your story with the audience, with Bold Cafe and with me. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the advice and everything like that. Is there anything else you want?
Thank you for everything you're doing. That's what I want to add. Honestly, because as I said earlier, you kind of saved me back at this town, you know, when I was at the bottom.
I really appreciate that, man. Thank you. And listen, we'll stay in touch, all right? Keep in touch on Instagram. And if there's anyone else who wants to, you know, ask me any questions, then I'll always get straight back to you on Instagram. Or you can email me. If you're on YouTube, I'll put the links to those down in the description. And I think we'll end it there, Cesar. Thank you so much. Stay in touch.
Thank you.
And yeah, and everyone watching back at home, if you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, then make sure you subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Like I mentioned before, you can catch me over on Instagram. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and we'll see you in the next episodes. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.